What up, y'all? It's your boy, Document Gaming back, and we're going to be talking about gaming journalism as well as the gaming community. First video of the New Year's, so first things first, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. As you can see on the screen here, just to the, it's mirrored. To the upper right of me is an article by Polygon that I wanted to touch on because I saw this a couple weeks ago, or when did this get published? 6 days ago. 6 days, not a couple weeks. It feels like that long. That's how busy I've been. It kind of got me thinking about this thing that's been in the back of my head for roughly 20 so years. I'm a 31 going on 32-year-old man, and I've been gaming the majority of my life as a hobby. And I saw this and I was like, oh, immediately, that is rage bait. But I'm going to click it anyway and see what this guy had to say, right? Because I'm just curious, right? And what has me so curious about this is also the fact that very recently I played through Resident Evil File 1 and 2 on the stream. So for those of you new to the channel, if you can't tell, big fan of Resident Evil. Those of you familiar with it, you know I am. So let's get right into it. Let me get up here into this article. So immediately, the post I saw, this was the headline, I played Resident Evil's Requiem's terrible prequels, so you don't have to. Desiccated blast from the past. And pictured in the red here is Alyssa Ashcroft, who is the mother of the main character that we will be playing as in Resident Evil 9. So let's get into this article, and I'm gonna I don't do a lot of, I'm stuttering already. I don't do a lot of commentary videos. I really just play games, give my opinion, and just have fun because I believe that's what they're here to do. And you can do whatever you want with that. You can do whatever you want in general. But, yeah, I typically don't do these. And usually I run on, even though I know what I want to say, I know how to articulate how I feel. I find myself running on. So to avoid that, I'm going to just kind of go one paragraph at a time and just respond to it as we go, or react to it as we go. So let's get into this. It says, I'm a card-carrying Resident Evil lore sicko, or so I thought. When Capcom revealed Resident Evil Requiem, the chorus of "It's Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak" post that broke out on social media made me realize there was a whole chunk of Resi lore I had no idea about. Shocker. And also foreshadowing in that first sentence, I'm a card carrying Resident Evil lore sicko, or so I thought. Yeah, we'll see. A janky multiplayer game that people love now, despite hating it at the time? Question mark. Starring an ace reporter whose murder is the premise of Requiem. This, I thought, was a knowledge gap I absolutely had to address, and not just with fan wikis. So off rip, we get off to a really odd start. Whenever I talk about video games, and this isn't a rule for everyone who talks about games, that's to all of you viewing this, to anyone, right? I do try to make a point that it's anecdotal in my opinion, because my opinion is not law. My opinion is not the de facto way you should enjoy a game, play a game, or understand it as an art. Regardless if a lot of people agree with me or not, or you or not. But I do find it interesting when people make these kind of comments because, granted, this is only in my limited experience. I don't think a lot of people hated the game, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of people loved the game. But also, I think a lot of people just simply did not know this game existed. It was a very niche spinoff that objectively was ahead of its time in what it was doing. At that point, I don't believe we had a multiplayer Resident Evil game at all, frankly. So this was the first time it was done, and it was during the PS2 generation. So when online, even then, was kind of, unless you were playing like an MMO on a PC, who was truly playing an online game? I believe this, Metal Gear Solid 3 and a few other titles did have some form of online. So that struck me as kind of weird, that it was like kind of inserting thing that's not really relevant or real. Rather, people loved or hated it or not. Regardless, starring an ace reporter, that's another thing. This game doesn't really have a starring character. As we kind of discussed in the live streams that I still need to edit and upload, all of these characters star in the Outbreak series, and I would say equally. I don't think there's any one character that really matters more than the other. They all bring an interesting aspect of Raccoon City. You have a security guard, a mechanic, a waitress who I believe has some type of nursing skills, right? You have a reporter or the journalist, you have an umbrella employee or former employee and college student, something. I know Yoko has a decent amount of mystery. Here I am not knowing my shit with the lore, but that's not the point of the video. Someone who works the subway, Jim, you know, a police officer, Kevin, and then a doctor. So let's move on. So, you know, she's not even the star. She does have a couple, I think all of them have like some canon things, but Resident Evil canon is another one. It's respectfully all over the place. So the games are, in a word, awful. That's crazy. Now, I would say when I first played this game, you think you know Resident Evil. You play 1, 2, 3, maybe Code Veronica. You get really good at those 4. You know, tank control, fixed camera angles. You think you're good, and then Outbreak comes, and the play style is the same but different. You have limited carrying capacity. Your characters aren't just full, well-rounded. You know, you have a few characters, or one, Alyssa, who can lockpick, but then you have a character who can do more with mixed herbs. You know, I want to say, who is George is the doctor. He can take herbs and mix herbs, and he can turn them into pills that effectively just do more. Plus, what makes the game more difficult is your movement speed, the damage you take, how your character responds to the damage that they take. Your movement is limited severely if you're bleeding or in danger versus any other Resident Evil title ever. And to add insult to injury, it heavily relies on cooperation. So if you are playing single player, you are heavily reliant on the AI. You don't need to, but I believe that is one of the best experiences, is to play it with friends or just a random, frankly. Hopefully they're not a troll, right? But awful it's far from awful. It's definitely different. And once you get the hang of it, once you get the controls down, and you learn how to mitigate the taking damage, also that new element, being infected from the beginning, right? You're a ticking time bomb, basically. So all damage that you take, statuses that you're in, make that infection rate go up at an increased speed. And when it hits 100%, doesn't matter where you are, that's game over. It's a very steep difficulty curve. So I didn't hate it. I didn't even dislike it. It was just daunting. It was a daunting task. Let's see. So the games are, in a word, awful. Time has not dulled the sharp edge of their bland levels and boring enemies, which is crazy. Outbreak actually has some of those interesting levels, and it has, I would say, if anything, annoying enemies, but it has a very good variety of enemies. I'm not going to say it has some of my best designs. I think the hunters look really good in this, but the lickers, not so much. Everything else really isn't that bad. But I got what I wanted and came away with a better understanding of Alyssa's background, as well as some potential timely themes underneath all the psychological horror and Leon Kennedy-ness of Resident Evil Requiem. I don't even know what that last sentence is supposed to mean, but okay. Outbreak starts with an impressively disturbing cutscene that gives you a rat's eye view of the crisis unfolding in Raccoon City. Jesus, I read ahead a little bit as I'm reading this. Mobs of infected are battling Umbrella agents underground and a super tyrant, presumably the same one Leon fights later that night. Now, I want to take a break from this article to just show. This was one of those things, man, because I'm going to get into this with gaming journalists, and I'm not going to be harsh, I'm not going to be mean, but I'm going to get into this, right? We come here and we go to the intro of Outbreak. This is a video posted by GameGeki, 359 subscribers. Let me give you a like because you made this easy. I didn't need to go back and record. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. So we see, I'm going to get to where we can actually see, because I don't want to watch this whole video, right? Umbrella agents underground. I think that's been changed, because I think he said it was like the U.S. Special Forces that you see in Umbrella Chronicles. I think he thought they were them. But if you've played Resident Evil, if you play Resident Evil 2, 3, you know these are Umbrella agents. They carry the MP5. They got the gas mask going. Skip ahead here. And this scene is very reminiscent of a very particular scene that we see in Resident Evil 2. And then the eyeball, the arm, everything, just from what you see right here. Just from what you see right here would tell you this is not a super tyrant. And we'll get into this right now. God, I'm typing way too fast. Okay, let's get here. All right. Even with the very limited graphics back then, this is so without a doubt clearly William Birkin. There's just no way. I'm not going to get on this guy's ass like really hardcore, but there's no way you could see this. And then considering that, here, let's mute this. Considering there are several scenes, the claw marks, the everything, this silhouette, it's so clearly Birkin. Even when I was much younger, I was a kid when this game came out, I knew that this was Birkin. Okay, that gets graphic. All right, let's get back to this. So I'm not even gonna ride this guy, but you're calling yourself certified Resident Evil sickle fan, and you can't even tell one of the most iconic enemies in the franchise is crazy to me, and arguably one of the greatest titles in the entire franchise. Rather you prefer the OG Resident Evil 2 or remake, doesn't matter. It's one of the most iconic titles, defining titles of Resident Evil. I'd go as far as to say that. So let's move on. I'm not even gonna read that. He says making quick work of most corporation soldiers. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Sometimes I wonder if these things were always written by like AI or some kind of algorithm, because there's just no way. Why that matters to you becomes quickly apparent. The scene cuts to a mountain of rats devouring an infected Umbrella soldier, and one of the furry fellas ends up in Jack's bar, where Alyssa Ashcroft and all the only other playable characters are spending a normal night. One bizarre mashup of in-game cinematics and F&B style zombie shots later, the bar is overrun and the fight to escape begins. So valid. Here, let me use the keyboards because that roller is very sensitive. Yeah, that's the screen I saw the Wild Things one from Scenario 1 in Outbreak File 2. The fight is mostly classic Resident Evil stuff, shooting zombies, finding keys, solving puzzles, but since Outbreak was a multiplayer game, you're cooperating with 2 other characters, AI controlled in my case, and moving across smaller maps with simpler puzzles. With 3 people and a massive amount of health, restoratives at hand, Outbreak offers little in the way of tension. Bullshit. And the small amount evaporates instantly once you realize how appallingly dense every enemy in the game is. So this I fully disagree with, and I would love to see his gameplay, the initial gameplay, like if this guy played this live, because what difficulty did you play on? Because that matters a lot for Outbreak. You have to, rather you successfully escape or die, you get points. Points can be redeemed in the shop. That lets you get additional players, skins, infinite ammo, and difficulties. But normal, I would definitely say it's tense, especially the first time you play it, period. Even going back to it, knowing what was coming, it's a very intense game. The only thing that breaks the tension is when you're playing with people that know what they're doing, so you know they can like help you out. All right, so he said his allies for the evening were Cindy, a waitress, and blah blah blah. Sobbing why now at intervals as if a zombie apocalypse might be more convenient next week. Dude, like, this is also so weird to me. Like, you're complaining about the in-game character saying why now in a situation. I mean, this is such a weird way to go about this. Anybody in a zombie apocalypse would probably say why now, because you're living your life. She's a fucking waitress. Who knows what's going on with Cindy, right? Like, that's such a weird thing to like complain about. And Mark, a black police officer, he's a security guard, but potato, I guess in this case, with whose utterances Capcom tried to out-stereotype Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. I need to see what this guy looks like. Hold on. Quick break. I need to see what this guy looks like because we could just go stay zoomed in. A black police officer with whose utterances Capcom tried to out stereotype Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. Communication between us and humans would have been playing together at the time was limited to what Capcom called an ad-lib system, where you press a button and see a random line of dialogue appear. Most of them were gibberish. It's just the characters in character commentating. Okay. I caught one line about scoops and asses without much in between the connected nouns. I would love to see the screenshot for that, because what are you talking about? Along with more than a few sentences that just didn't finish. Not that communication would have helped much. Cindy understandably had little combat prowess. Mark had a gun and the benefit of a rather concerning amount of ammunition stashed around the bar, but rarely shot anything. Off we trotted upstairs to the bar's staff room, which is actually several rooms in a locker room. Roughly a dozen people evidently work at this tiny bar on a basis regular enough to justify the lockers. That's really not that odd. There's quite a few places I worked that serve food and drinks that has lockers, especially considering some people work more than one job. This is such a weird, like, does this guy say where he's from? I don't understand the. All right, there's that. I guess anybody can write a review for Polygon, I guess. But what? The action button lets you investigate, but also hide when applicable. Oh my god, the brain rot is getting to me from this. I'm sorry, y'all. The game has a different idea of what's applicable than you do. However, collectibles blend into the background. So if you approach a cabinet or a bed, yes, there's a bedroom in the staff quarters, and it isn't even the owner's. Okay. Jack's bar is easily the weirdest workplace in gaming. It's really not. In hopes of collecting what looks like ammo sitting on sheets, you might end up locked into a 10-second long animation of Alyssa hiding instead. Which I will say that is something that this game did not age well with. That just trying to see what you can pick up and interact with, you could get locked into, and they move really slow. Animations of getting in, out of lockers, underneath beds, up from underneath beds. There are quite a few things that just it sucked back then, and it kind of sucks now. It would have been nice to have a confirmation hide under bed, hide in locker, right? That would have been nice, but that's about the only valid thing this dude has said in this entire paragraph. So let's move on. We somehow made it out in the end. And despite my misgivings about the whole thing, I pushed ahead, determined to see Alyssa's story. There wasn't one. And not just for her either. The survivors are just avatars with no stakes and proceedings beyond not dying, and everyone's relationship to the few nuggets of information about Umbrella's activities in the city was largely the same. The level of design is atmospheric, I'll give it that, but an essential piece of Resident Evil lore this was not. So this boils down to a word that a friend of mine that I actually knew this guy from way back when, very limited knowing, and then we kind of reconnected just in a Resident Evil group and kind of just talked about lore and life and all this other shit. But I say this because he'll probably see this and give me shit. Media literacy. So here's the kicker. Resident Evil Outbreak is not it's a linear story, but not in the same sense as the original games. It is, you got to figure out what you're doing, where you're going. The objective is clear, but it's not like laid out for you. You do kind of have to figure it out, right? And with that being said, you want to play through. The scenarios are truly not that long. like every game you ever play, the first playthrough is going to be like the biggest thing. Sounds like he didn't do one thing in particular, and that was help this wounded security guard that's there, Bob, with Mark. If you play as Mark, or I think as long as Mark is on your team, and you help Bob get to the roof, which takes work and figuring out. And if you try that on your first go, you may not get it, especially if you're playing with the AI and on normal, for example, right? You do see a cutscene, and I think on normal, Bob takes himself out because he doesn't want to turn into a monster, but he can feel it. I think on hard, the cutscene is slightly different. He does become a zombie, unfortunately. Or you can just leave him behind, which is what it sounds like this guy did. But you kind of want to play through the scenarios with multiple characters so you can see things. Like when you play with Cindy, she finds files or secret items. I can't remember how you break it down exactly, but one thing I do know is that you find different things that give you more information about the characters, about the lore, about just the atmosphere building, world building of Resident Evil. So it's rich with that. This guy just happened to play and not see, look, find any of it. Based on what I'm reading, it looks like he played through with Alyssa, assuming it was Alyssa's story, and he missed out on both Mark and Cindy's opening story. I mean, fuck, even everybody has a reason they're at the bar, Kevin included. Like, there's lore there. Just because you didn't comprehend it doesn't mean it's not there. And that's a problem with people who play games and then also give a review. If you're going to give a review, you're putting something out there for everybody to see. Did you understand it well enough to share with the others, right? With people, with myself, with anyone? Because you're putting this thing out there and you don't understand it. You don't even understand what you're playing. So, I mean, that's, I guess, you're free to do it, but it's kind of weird. So a year later, Capcom trotted out File 2, a redo of the first Outbreak. It was not a redo. It was a continuation that looked and functioned mostly the same, with a handful of different levels, including one where you fight zombie animals at the city zoo, but it also made an attempt at storylines. Alyssa gets the most developed one, though the disparity between hers and everyone else's is so blatant, and it makes me wonder why Capcom didn't just make Alicia Ashcroft game. Her story is why I played, however, so I don't think about it too much. What's weird about this statement too is that if he played every single scenario with Alyssa, I feel like while you could argue all of the characters making it into different scenarios, kind of like what I discussed with a guy I played with, I believe there's a canon split where all 8 characters are at the bar, but not all 8 characters go to the same place. That they break up into 4-man teams, possibly even lesser man teams throughout, and reconnect in different places. And then I do believe that the entire cast of 8 characters escapes the city in a different way. So this guy isn't even doing himself a service right now. And it turns out Capcom didn't either. For most of Outbreak File 2, Alyssa is still just another playable character in the game where personality and the background have little significance. You can pick up a few tidbits here and there that suggest she made a habit of digging into stories no one else would. Some are throwaways, like a report about a robbery, but there's another more relevant to her story, a newspaper cutting about a big pharma dumping chemicals in a river where a really mutated body washed up. Then you hit the 4th mission, Flashback, and that's where Alyssa's story unfolds. A friend of hers was murdered by a zombified experiment subject in a hospital. The mission takes place in an Umbrella researcher named Greg Mueller suppressed Alyssa's memories of the incident. Now Alyssa vows to find justice for her dead friend and bring Umbrella down however she can. So that one was a given. He was going to get that because he's playing through the whole game with Alyssa, and that's one of the scenarios where it dives into her. Umbrella in the city. Then the people... Oh, wait. What? I skipped through. My bad. Okay. Yeah, I'm in the final. We're in the last stretch of this. There is a single newspaper clipping in Resident Evil 7 where Alyssa writes about the disappearances in Dulvey, LA. That's the only direct mention of her in the series after Outbreak, but now it made more sense beyond just being an Easter egg for dedicated fans. This was Capcom telling us that Alyssa wasn't like Leon or Jill or any of the rest who justifiably tried to put the Raccoon City incident behind them. This was a reporter who relentlessly pursued every lead about anything that might be connected to Umbrella and its experiments, chasing shadows and rumors across the country, never wavering in her quest for justice, despite, as the Baker report suggests, being dismissed as a crank. What's crazy about that is that's where this paragraph right here goes to show this guy does offer some level of critical thinking, because now you're telling me that you're reading into this Easter egg now, that you have an understanding of her character to some capacity, that she continued this investigative journalism despite how people view her. And you get that through the first and second outbreak, not just flashbacks. Oh boy, brother. But how do you not get anything from the other cast member? Reporters like that are dangerous. Just look at all the real life efforts of the last few years to rein journalists in and force them to follow accepted narratives that let corruption run amok, rampant and unchecked. Rather, Requiem's antagonist is the obscure criminal organization that created Evelyn in Resident Evil 7, an undead Greg Mueller back for vengeance, or something else entirely. It's no wonder they want Alyssa Ashcroft out of the way. And that's the first, I'll give him, he came up with a brand new theory. Greg Mueller coming back. I don't think anyone said him yet. I've been waiting for people to hope Billy's coming back, but whatever. Let's move on, man. All right, I am going to touch on something up here before we dive into these comments, because there was one thing that kind of just threw me off, and it's going to catch my attention. I'm sorry. It's wild. As far as like reviews go or articles go, I don't feel like reading this. What did I take away from this? If I were to listen to this guy, right, Josh Broadwell, I would have missed out on playing an incredibly great game. This is a game that, played with friends or even by yourself on original hardware, is a good experience. And whether you follow a guide or not, I believe that most people would have fun with this game. And there's a lot of little secrets and little things to it, a lot of which I'm going to try to post on my channel once I get through the edit and everything. But this article just felt, to me, it comes off as someone who just wants attention and wants to pretend as if they're a fan of a series that they're really not. They don't know anything about it, and they just want to be a part of the conversation. That's what this article comes off as. And I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to be mean, but this seems like a fraud. Someone who's pretending to be a gamer, someone who's pretending to be a fan of Resident Evil, someone who frankly just doesn't know what they're talking about. They're not qualified to know what they're talking about. And that's such a low bar, because it's gaming. Who's qualified to talk about gaming? It's everybody. And if you're unqualified to talk about it because you don't know what you're talking about, that says a lot of bad about you. But here we are. What was really weird to me was Mark, a black police officer, with the whose utterances Capcom tried to out-stereotype Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. If what they say is so bland and so empty and so this, how is Barrett a stereotype? Like, I really want to know what examples you would drive from, because I said Barrett, but Mark as a character, because at the end of the day, not only is Mark a goated character in Outbreak with his mechanic, because I think in the first game, if you block with him, which he just puts his arms up, you negate like all damage. Like, Mark is a goated character to get through the entire game, whether you're playing solo or with friends. He's goated. And I feel like with his voice lines that you do hear with his character, with how you see him interact, he's a very humble, down to earth. He's not like tropes that you would expect from, I'm just going to say it how it is, token or stereotypical characters. He's not like black in a way that's a punchline. He's just a guy, right? So I feel like that was a really weird remark he made about it, because nothing about Mark seems on the nose. And for Jim, for that matter, too. Like, none of these characters seem like a gross stereotype of anyone. I mean, the excuse me, Jesus. The characterizations of them, I mean, Jim is a goofy subway guy who apparently doesn't wash his ass, right? David's kind of quiet, stoic, doctor guy. Kevin's kind of a little bit of a cocky asshole cop, but I mean, their characters do go deeper than that. I mean, just at face value, you know, Yoko, the shy college girl, Alyssa, the serious reporter, Cindy, the really friendly waitress, you know, David, the kind of somewhat mysterious, kind of rough around the edges mechanic, and Mark is like he's just a homie that's a security guard. Like, it's just so weird that Mark of all characters kind of got I feel like they threw a shot at him, and it's weird. Like, why did his character get attacked in any way, shape, or form? That rubbed me the wrong way. But let's get into these comments. Prepare for a wave of hate, dude. This feels so generic. The opening cutscene shows William Birkin's first stage of mutation killing Umbrella's agents. It's technically his second form, but my man's is still valid. It is not a super titan. Auto 1 shows up as a boss. Birkin is not a boss in this game, which is a fact. Birkin does not show up. I would say OP not appreciating these games and not understanding basic Resident Evil lore go hand in hand. Bro, PJ the player, you cooking. PJ the player again. Wow, this was an infuriating read for me. I love Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2 at launch, and I still love them to this day. The fan community was so passionate about these games that they reverse engineered Capcom's online service after it was shut down and recreated it so you can still play online. They are still by far the best online multiplayer Resident Evil games ever made. This is a case of someone unable to appreciate a classic. You had to be there, and the OP obviously wasn't. And you know what, man? This dude absolutely fucking cooked, bro. Like, I will say this, because this is going to get into the gaming community thing. This is a longer video, of course, but I do feel as though the flow is a bit better. Don't let people infuriate you. While some of the things in this were definitely frustrating and PJ is valid in it, and I'm not going to take anything from him. Be infuriated. I feel that, bro. But at the same time, he calls it like it is. You had to be there, OP wasn't there. And even if you weren't there, you can still appreciate classics. I can go back to this day and play a game on like Nintendo 64 or Sega and appreciate the game for what it is when it came out and still judge it. And I can, to some degree, I'm not perfect. I can judge it based on the standards of back in the day without us being back in the day. But man's cooked. Same boat. Outbreak 1 and 2 are great. God forbid they try to do something fun, experimental with the Resident Evil franchise, right? Hey, bro, Red is cooking too. These folks is cooking. The trailer for Outbreak was the reason one of my friends and I both got PS2s. That's rare. I've never heard that. A lot of people have PS2s in general or for different reasons. I happened upon Outbreak I did see a commercial, at least for File 2. I can remember for sure. I can't recall seeing a commercial or trailer for the first one before playing it on TV, but I do remember seeing some stuff for it, or at least on the internet. Don't matter. But I happened upon it in a rental store and tried it for the first time. So I was like, this is Resident Evil I've never seen, and the font was reminiscent of the movie. In fact, in the manual of the OG, I think I actually have one here, and I should look at it, but I'm not going to do it right now because we're already going over on time quite a bit. It actually had a thing where you could send in and get tickets to see the movie in theaters, and then it had a little section talking about the next movie, Apocalypse. Regardless if you like those movies or not, just a little bit of history, right? I remember riding the EB Games. Oh my God, that makes me feel old. EB Games, GameStop, geez. To get the PS2s and the network adapters to play online. We had literal conference calls, and this is a kicker, right? Because a lot of folks don't get this. Before Skype, before Discord, you had landline phones to talk to the friends you had made at school or outside that had these games. And that's how you would communicate for a lot of these games that had multiplayer, especially getting into like Xbox with Halo or any other game at this time that had online. You would get on a call if you had the landline and the time to do it, right? Because the game does not have voice chat. It still does not have voice chat. So we just use I figure it was easier for them to just reverse engineer online, and instead of trying to add things, just recreate it, and then people can chat however. Some of the missions required actual planning and strategy to complete, where you would split off into groups to tackle 2 separate objectives, which is one of the best ways to do it. And some of the AI will split off from you to do it. That used to irritate me as a kid because I didn't understand that's what was happening. But then they would have a key item, and I'm like, oh, they're helping. But I'm thinking they're going to go off and die, or that I need to follow them. You can, but it's better if you know what you're doing and you kind of let them cook. in the scenarios where they can't cook. It was a great time, and I spent hundreds of hours enjoying both games. In my experience, people who actually played Outbreak when it came out loved it. People that play it today with zero frame of reference do not. And I think that's probably not true to some extent. I think people who play it now would probably enjoy it. I'm not going to say they would thoroughly enjoy it, but I think they would enjoy it. I'm sorry. Do better. These games are cherished and loved and maintained by a fan community so welcoming and kind, you have no idea. Which, again, whoever this is, you are cooking right now. Tamara, cooking. About a year ago, I finally made the effort to join the community, and they spent the time to teach and guide me through the entire process. My experience as well recently. There are numerous tutorials online. There are countless videos covering why this game is not only loved, but why it is one of the most misunderstood Resident Evil games, as well as one of the best representations of the experience of survival horror. This article really feels spiteful of an experience you didn't get to have and didn't truly bother looking deeper than playing by yourself. Yes, the AI is dopey in a single player experience. Not that bad. Playing it with a fan community may be one of the most fun experiences I've had in multiplayer I've ever had. In the future, I hope you get a proper chance to enjoy it, because the players always would love someone to join. And that's facts, man. That community is very welcoming. Now, there are some people in there that just only like to play on the hardest difficulty, and they just run through it as fast as they can and challenge themselves, which is fine. But there's plenty of people who don't want to voice chat, don't want to talk. Plenty of people who want to voice chat, want to talk, are willing to help you, guide you, help you learn the ropes. There are people who don't have patience, but it's far more good than bad in that community, and it is amazing. Okay. This isn't what prequel means. A prequel is a sequel, a title released after another title, whose story is set before the events of a preceding title. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a prequel to the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple, let me see. Follow Raiders, blah, 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 blah. He just cooking him on what it is. Resident Evil Outbreak is Resident Evil Outbreak is Resident Evil Requiem's predecessor, not a prequel. And I mean, he's cooking, man. Like, it's not a prequel. It's just a game that came before it. And frankly, every game before Resident Evil 9 leads up to Resident Evil 9. The Outbreak series just happens to be canon, which is rare for some of the spinoffs. So I don't think I'm going to be able to read all of these, but I will stop on some of them. The last big one I'll read is this one. So, Fax My Cloud. I too was mad reading this, but I can understand why you didn't like the game. You really need to play this game with two other people to get the fun out of it that others like myself remember. Playing with the AI is infuriating. It's really not. And by today's standard, it's not smooth and there are rough animations, slow pacing, etc. They were just as bothersome then as they are now, which I agree with. But as someone who played this when it came out, man, it was fun. What I remember is the rush of running from the zombies catching up to you in the first level, the crazy worm boss stalking you in the hospital, the thrill of exploring. Yeah, that was the leech, man, from RE0 for sure. The thrill of exploring an Umbrella Lab with other people, the facing off against a bioweapon at the end was all a fun experience, all set to the static camera that we all had experienced in the single-player Resident Evils. There wasn't an over-the-shoulder third-person camera system in the Resident Evil series at the time like the remakes we have today. I think a lot of people want to recapture those feelings, but with the treatment that they've given the RE2 and RE3 remakes, it sounds good on paper, but it sounds really hard to get the same hit of nostalgia. And I think everybody's idea of a modern Outbreak game probably looks a bit different, depending on who you ask, which is facts. I think a lot of people want different things. I kind of personally want a thing that's a please all, and I do have a strategy or an idea that Capcom could use that I believe would work in practice. But I don't work for Capcom, so I can't pitch that. I think a lot of people don't realize how close we got to a new Outbreak with the since canceled Resident Evil Resistance, but the fatal flaw in that was having a fifth player control zombies, spawn, monsters, etc., and thus completely changed the dynamics of the game, which is facts. They turned it more into a mastermind game, like, you know, there's one big bad and the four of you are trying to hurry up and survive, and the limit was way too small. Those games are 15 minutes max, right? And even then, you really only need 8 or 9 minutes to get through a match of Resistance. It was close, but that gets into a whole nother thing we don't have the time for. As for Ashcroft, I think she and all these characters were just a throwaway cast for us to have fun with, and now they want to grow the Resident Evil story, which I don't think they were throwaway. I think they were a fun addition to the story that they were like, we can capitalize on it, but if not, we're not hurting anything. I think they were safe. They were safe characters that you can choose to build on or write off. The writers realize they have some folks to pull from and develop to make the world feel bigger while playing tribute to a game so many like myself remember fondly. I'm excited to learn about blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to get into everybody's reply, but I mean, all the comments the few comments we got here kind of reaffirm how I feel. I'm going to get back up to what this guy looks like. I mean, I don't know this dude from anybody. I don't have X, so I'm not going to go to X or Twitter, but looks like he just recently joined Polygon. I don't know. This was a weird article. The few things he wrote rubbed me the wrong way. I think it's the problem that a lot of us as real everyday gamers, like we go to work, we come home. Some of y'all are unemployed, which is fine. So you just play games. I think the issue is that people like this guy right here, over there, not this guy, not this Final Fantasy character, but that guy up, this guy. I'm so fucking stupid. Is that these guys don't represent the vast majority of gamers, which I think I'm safe to say that the vast majority of gamers play games just to enjoy them and just to have fun and have a good time. Every game, we don't need to be a masterpiece musically, atmosphere, theater, right? Every game doesn't need to be a 10 out of 10. Every game doesn't need to be a Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? And sometimes it's good to just have a fun time. I'll throw one out there, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a game I just have fun with. It's not that deep, right? Assassin's Creed, I just have fun with it. It's not that deep. But kind of like something he touched on in the article, like a journalist being a problem, right? For corruption and this and that. And this is something I wanted to talk about as we get into like the gaming community, is that all things in life are art and all things in life are political at one level or another. And I feel like Alyssa is a commentary on what we see in the real world without getting into any type of geopolitics or politics at all right now. And this is what I mean by you can really take away from what you want. A lot of people, including myself, especially at the time, we played this game and we just liked the game that we played. We played this game and we just clung on, did a deep dive into the lore that was in the game. We didn't look at it at a real life commentary, social commentary, political commentary, any of that. And I think it's perfectly fine if you do or you don't. But it's guys like this who just have a such a non-understanding of what they just played, and then they go out and they put out an article. I'm gonna move on from this because this was really, I just wanted to touch on that, man. Gaming journalism, it's got to get better. I think the more that guys like me and you watch and just talk about the games we love, I think that's going to change the gaming sphere as a whole, the gaming community as a whole, because it's just more of us that just play this shit and have fun. And I think our genuine, authentic opinions carry more weight than whatever you want to call this. And I feel like we might still get some of these, but this just came off as just so pretentious, and I don't know what it was trying to do. Now I wanted to talk about something in particular. So we had a incident with not an incident, I shouldn't call it like that. It's not that deep at all. Let me see if I can pull this up. So I'm going to talk about it before I pull it up. Basically, the face model for Resident Evil is this Romanian guy. He liked some really interesting things. I'm just going to put it like that. He decided to pretty much like a comment, or he posted something on like Instagram. I want to pull it up because I don't want to like slander anyone. Let me see. It's not the same guy who's playing Leon in the current one. He did Leon in the remake of 2 and 4, I believe. So there is a YouTube video that covers it. I'll pull that up, so hopefully we can get a screenshot of a screen grab of what he posted. But he posted something that was kind of wild, man. It It was like kind of anti-trans. It was kind of like in support of like Hitler or some shit like that. It was really weird. And okay, let's see if we can find it. So Edward, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna find both posts. So we got a guy. His YouTube channel is Wagner Knows Why. So Eduardo Bardaluda, the face model for Leona's Kennedy Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 4 remake, supposedly recently liked and reposted some posts supporting the Nazi movement on his Instagram. Some fans also noticed that he liked posts with transphobic and anti-minority statements. We here at this page immediately unfollowed him after becoming aware of these actions, as he does not represent us or the Resident Evil fan base. Nazism was a very sad movement that left its mark during World War II and should be condemned by everyone. It is also a crime in several countries. It would be interesting for Capcom to consider this controversy and change Leon's face model for future games, as we know this could tarnish the yada yada yada. Now, I don't want to steal this guy's views or like show his video off, but I'll see if I can find the post. I may have to go to, I'm gonna look up this guy's name in particular. I think I spelled it right. So yeah, we're not going to get into the whole meat of it. It was just a small point of what this did, what he did, and how it affected something I'm going to talk about in just the gaming community, something that's very common or very normal or normalized, unfortunately. So essentially, this guy shared this post, and I'm going to see if I can just pull it up on my phone. I don't know if it's been deleted. This isn't a takedown on this guy. It's not a come after this guy. So I don't think it matters too terribly, right? But this is where he liked something. I'm assuming this is on Twitter, which I do not have. So I'll just try to get it up to the camera to kind of show it a little bit. I know this is horrible. This is not the way to present something or show something, but you know, he liked or reposted that or whatever, right? Now, that in of itself is a whole different problem that as a can of worms, I'm not going to dive into because, frankly, it's not the focus of what I want to talk about. Frankly, I do think this community page that posted it was well within their rights to kind of sound the alarms because, frankly, a lot of people that are fans of something, that are into something, that really enjoy and love something, they tend to look at the voice actors, they tend to look at the face models, they tend to appreciate the work that goes into the art, not just the writers, not just the producers, Capcom. They try to give love and appreciation to everybody who made this thing happen, which in recent history has happened a little bit more often than when I was growing up, right? And that's a great thing. But unfortunately, sometimes some of the people that are a part of these projects may represent some things that aren't inclusive, welcoming, or loving, or nice, right? And it is what it is. So they sounded off the alarms. They say, hey, we don't follow them because this doesn't support what we believe. It doesn't blah, 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 blah. That's neither here or there. I'm not going to get into that. So I saw this posted in a group, a Resident Evil group that I was in, that was just kind of like memes and jokes and stuff like that. And anyone who's played gaming, especially if you've been someone who's been on Call of Duty or anything like that, and I can speak on this as a black man in gaming that's had to deal with it, both here on YouTube over the years, on the Call of Duty, on any game, and any woman can speak on that, right? And if you know, but it's outright racism and sexism just off the bat. It just gets crazy. And nowadays, people have gotten so comfortable with their disrespect. Humor, jokes, they have a punchline. Even dark humor has its time and place, although I'm not for policing what people say and when they say it. Just know that there are consequences for it, and that you should probably say some things in good taste, depending on what you do, what your career field is, right? Like if you're a first responder or something, you probably shouldn't be making distasteful, disgusting jokes when you're dealing with vulnerable people all the time. That's just one example, right? So me personally, in protecting my peace, I kind of pay very close attention to where I spend my time anywhere, both in person and online. So When I see people like, oh, based, oh man, I'm gonna play this game for sure. Oh, I'm gonna go buy the deluxe edition just because, like, they're really buying into this. Oh, this guy is racist. Fuck yeah, like, I'm gonna support him in this way because now I know about this. I'm definitely gonna support what he's in, right? To me, that's weird, dangerous, and it's just disgusting behavior. So personally, right, and this is not me policing anyone else, do what you want. Me personally, I just don't want to be around that. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to deal with that, right? I don't want that in my workplace. I don't want it in my social circles or social environments. But because a lot of these groups are usually pretty public or pretty open, I just block the people who are in it, right? Now, if it's an environment where the admins don't shut down that kind of behavior, then what does that say for every other person in that group that's black, that's trans, that's a woman, that's whatever? When you have someone who's being hateful toward, pick what it is, right? And oftentimes it's just racism and sexism, right? Protect your peace, right? I block people because I'm like, okay, it's not everybody. It's a small section. Cool, I'll block them. I ended up blocking an admin who had partaken in some of this behavior, and I'm like, okay, fun. I got removed from the group. Fun. Is what it is. I say that to say the gaming community is not a monolith, right? You have groups that are very racist, evil, childish people, right? That's just what it is, right? In real life, I'm not going to go to a bar where there's a bunch of people who are racist to people who look like myself, right? I think it's jacked up. They exist. I think it's jacked up. I can't enjoy that establishment. But if that's the kind of clientele they want to keep, and that's the kind of clientele that wants to hang out there, my business is best elsewhere. I'm not someone who looks for a fight where it's unnecessary. So if you find yourself in that position, my advice is to do as I do. Don't make a scene. Don't argue. Don't sling insults. Don't play in the mud with them. If you see something worth reporting, especially like some things that are like kind of crossing the line, like with children, especially some AI posts there that were kind of wild, report that shit. Don't report it to the admins, report it to the authorities, right? And when you see stuff that's just like out of hand, like people supporting this type of behavior, I'm pointing at it, even though I took it off the screen, block them and move on. And if the admins of that community support it or won't take it down, leave that community, make your own or join another one. People are going to do what they want to do. It's not about surrounding yourself in a circle with just like-minded people, but there's also no sense in surrounding yourself with people who hate you for being you. If you're trans, you should be free to live as a trans person and not have to deal with someone making jokes at the expense of your existence or your struggle. And the same goes for if you're black, a woman, white, or anything else. No one should make a joke out of your struggle and your existence and make you feel uncomfortable. But leave the situation. So that's all I really wanted to touch on. I wanted to touch on gaming journalism because articles like what we just read from that Josh Broadwell guy, guys who are frauds in the gaming sphere and frauds within a specific gaming community, right? The Resident Evil fan base. And then the Resident Evil are just gaming communities that are toxic, hateful, bigoted, right? Don't interact with them. Leave them. Find people that are like-minded, right? If you know what, I'll end on this because I want to get off this soapbox. We're at 53 minutes. This is a lot longer than I intended it to be, but I figured it was going to be a long one. It is what it is. Fuck. So God, I went so much longer than I intended to. I guarantee y'all the very next commentary video I do, I'm just going to write a script so I can keep it concise. But I felt like I just needed to get it off my chest, talk about some of this, touch on some of this, read that article. It is what it is. Find your peace, find your circle, right? In real life, do you hang around a bunch of bums? Do you hang around a bunch of losers? Do you hang around a bunch of people who blame everybody else for their problems, right? If that's not you, separate yourself from those circles. And above all else, enjoy life. It's too much going on to let everything be something miserable. If you're a person who wants to be in a group where people are going to always be racist, miserable, hateful, do you. Enjoy that. Enjoy the life and excitement and enjoyment that brings to you. Couldn't be me. But I'll take my happy-go-lucky black ass someplace where I can enjoy it. All right, y'all. Peace. This went on too long. Again, it went on too long. We out of here, y'all. God damn, 54 minutes. That's crazy. crazy. What was I even talking about for 54 minutes? A bunch of nothing. God.